World Cup fans have their eyes on the U.S. and England today as they face off in one of the biggest showdowns of the World Cup so far. They may be our so-called neighbor from across the pond, but don't expect to see any special treatment on the field today. Former Major League Soccer players Calen Carr and Charlie Davies are here now with more on this high-stakes matchup. Thank you both for being here. Calen, the U.S. is coming off a frustrating 1-1 draw against Wales. And England is now not only favored to win today, they're the favorite to win the whole group. So how do you keep spirits high going into a game like this?
Well, yeah, England is the team that came out and, looked like one of the best teams so far in the tournament, beating Iran 6-2. And this would say, okay, this favors England in this matchup because the U.S. was unconvincing in that first match. But this is what we've been waiting for. I mean, when this came out and we saw this group, we immediately circled this date and said, this is the matchup we want. And I think because this U.S. team is one of the youngest teams in the World Cup, Charlie and I have seen a lot of these players develop here in Major League Soccer and play here at the highest level, as well as being some of them sold over to England themselves and playing against a lot of these players week in, week out in the Premier League. So I think it'll suit them a little bit to be underdogs in this. And I think they'll come out and use that youthful energy and enthusiasm and maybe try and hit on the counterattack. We've seen some big upsets so far in this tournament. And I know we'll be hopeful today from the U.S. side that we'll be next.
So, Charlie, let's talk about tactics here. What are you hoping to see from the U.S. today? Are there any specific strategies you think they can use to win this game?
Yes, I look back to our big upset in 2009 when we beat Spain, who hadn't lost in about 2 years. They were coming off the championship from the Euros. We played them in the Confederations Cup a year before the World Cup, and we beat them in the semifinals in a FIFA tournament. Unheard of, arguably the biggest upset in U.S. men's national team history. And the way we beat them was with specific tactics in taking out the midfielders. They had Xabi Alonso and Xavi making the game. And in England, you have Jude Bellingham and Declan Rice. It's important for the U.S. to close down the midfield. Don't allow England to get confidence. I think they have to be really, obviously, compact in the midfield, force them to the outsides, and then just make it very difficult. As long as they're physical and they work harder. I think we've seen some upsets in this tournament, Saudi Arabia being the biggest one and Japan just right after them. What they did specifically was outwork the opponent, want it more than them. And then it's got to be a collective group in terms of defensive responsibilities. It can't be one person. It's got to be the whole team. And if you do that, I ultimately think the U.S. can get a result today.
I mean, we've seen enough upsets in this tournament already so far, so we certainly know it's possible. It was interesting. We were just looking at some live images from Doha, where you can see outside the stadium crowds already gathering and a live watch party. Massive crowd of people just sitting down to watch this all unfold on screen. It's amazing how these events can bring people together. And so, Calen, from sort of a more macro perspective, if the U.S. wins this game, what do you think that does for the world's perception of American men's soccer?
Yeah, like any soccer or football obsessed person, we measure time in World Cups, and that's every 4 years. And for this U.S. men's national team, we've had to wait. We didn't qualify for the last World Cup in Russia. And so I think to now qualify with this young, exciting team is really going to be able to sort of change the perception of the way that American soccer is perceived. And Greg Berhalter, the head coach, has come out and said as much and said, we'd like to change that. He's made that a target. And what a better venue on the world's biggest stage, going up against England with all of the big names that they have across the board. And I think that's why this team is going to be able to kind of take on that personality. I think of the captain, Tyler Adams, grew up here in New York City. We watched him coming through Major League Soccer, becoming a star, now playing in Leeds in the Premier League. He's sort of the emotional leader of this team, and I think is going to kind of set the tone, as Charlie mentioned, that middle of midfield. If they're going to disrupt things there with Bellingham in that middle, I think Adams is going to play a big role in doing that. But yes, make no mistake about it, Diane, this is a huge opportunity, I think, to really put a stamp. And with 2026 coming here next, and the way Major League Soccer is growing, the World Cup would be in the U.S. I think this really sets the stage for that next tournament as well. But first things first, we've got to do the business today against England.
And Charlie, how hard is it to stay in that mindset when you know there's so much riding on this, there's so much pressure, you really want to prove yourself not only in this game, But in general, American men's soccer on the world stage, how do you focus on, let's just focus on what's happening today?
Well, this is why we play the game, Diana. I'm so excited for these guys. I've just being in their shoes, having to play against some of the best players in the world. All the pressure is on England. England is expected to be one of the finalists in the World Cup. They're one of the favorites. The U.S., not a lot of people are giving them a shot to beat England, to beat one of the top teams. So for this young group, this is where you make a name for yourselves. This is where you put yourself in the history books. This is where you change the narrative of soccer, not only in America, but around the world. So I think they're coming into it with that freedom. They're focused. They know they just have to perform at the best that they can to their ability. And I'm excited for them because I know there's a big chance to change the narrative of this sport.
And finally, a question to both of you. My husband is English, so if the U.S. wins today, any tips on how to save my marriage?
That's
a tough one.
I believe we can win. I believe we can win.
Oh,
yes,
boy. I believe that we
absolutely.
can win, and I believe that I will be in trouble if that happens. But, gentlemen, thank you both so much for joining us today. We'll all be cheering together today, no doubt.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.